Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the World's Talk. My name's Hysterics, weirdly enough hosting on someone else's channel. Bit of an impromptu World's Talk show, but nevertheless, it should be a bit of a banger. As I already said, you know my name. On the other side of the coin, we've got IWillDominate, who, I believe we're literally hosting this on your stream at or YouTube at 7 a.m. in the morning for you.
No, it's your channel now. This is how you get it. So yeah, from now on, you're gonna be the one that's running it. You're gonna be the one that's co-streaming. You're gonna be hosting. You're gonna be doing the highlights, clips. You're gonna be flaming pro players. It's all you now.
Oh man, you haven't slept as well. Like, I'm looking forward to that. What did you just say? 22-hour lifestyle before we went live?
Yeah, I mean, so I have a lot of talk shows to do today because like the way that essentially Worlds works is you have 4 days where you're just nonstop like stream, or you do like 8-hour streams, right? And then then in the break you have to record, you know, all the talk shows, and they have to go live the next day, or else all the content becomes irrelevant on Thursday when World starts again. So yeah, I mean, you know, this is the grind. We're doing the no sleep grind,
bro. We're here for a couple of days, as you said. Like, a couple of small breaks to Worlds comes back around for the second round robin. Speaking of which, though, Nelson, I'm not going to leave you hanging. You literally flew from a. Where'd you fly from? Because you landed like an hour ago.
Yeah. I took a plane from Germany to Finland, and then Finland to Singapore. So it's rough, but
wow. Again, World's Talk, a name I came up with because it feels like, you know, there needs to be more talking about Worlds. Probably something that people won't be saying, but until now, we never know. We can go right into the thick of it, gents, because otherwise I'll be going off the cliff. We need to get into the thick of this first round robin because I feel like there's a lot going on. And starting off with our groups, there's a lot to kind of dissect. So, Dom, I'm going to throw it over to you first, because Group A of World so far has been like this, what do you call it, like a trolley, like this recycling arrow. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's a little love triangle, and then there's Cloud9. You know, it's Cloud9 is like the bastard child that is just being discarded immediately. So, yeah. I mean, it's been rough as an NA fan. I've been really rooting for NA on all my streams, and it just feels so doomed watching the way Cloud9 plays. And it's not even about the gameplay, really. For me, it's about the mentality. Like, when you look at the other teams in the group, when teams make mistakes against them, they just like take the advantage and they win with it. It feels like Cloud9 is so scared to play these first 3 games.
I feel like it's just the most painful thing as well. I think it was their last game watching, might have been against EDG, sitting back, letting Dragon Soul go over, and then taking the fight. Nelson, you know, thoughts on this group? Because I feel like a lot of people would have expected maybe a T1 or EDG edging it out, but man, Fnatic are actually doing pretty good here as well.
I actually feel like in this group the meta kind of revolves around like bot lane.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, T1 is like, I think they have the second weakest bot lane in this group, and it could be an issue for them to, like, maybe they'll not make it out of the group for the first time, you know. I think for EDG, they didn't have the draft correct on the first day, that's why they lost. So I still trust in my boy, you know, Flandre, as long as you don't play the Fiora Ornn matchup again. I think giving Aatrox is fine, you know, and you play Ornn, but not the Fiora.
True. I'm glad you mentioned Flandre as well. Like, man, that guy's been put in rough spots before, but I was also going to say, you know, saying that the second weakest bot lane in the group, dude, we thought Cloud9's bot lane were going to be like maybe mid-tier, maybe on the upper echelon, right? You know, any of you guys want to hit on that? Because, dude, Berserker was so hyped coming into this.
Yeah, Berserker was hyped, but now they're not playing lanes where you can, you know, have a Yuumi on top of Berserker and let him do his thing. They're actually having to like lane with Leona, Nautilus, these types of picks. And I mean, that's just not what got them here. So I think that there's a massive overreaction to like the nerfs to Yuumi and Lulu. I think that these champions can still be played. And if you're just way better on those types of champions than engage supports, there's no reason to try to play engage support versus carrier. Like, you're never winning that. You went into that game, right? Sure. And what did you see? Leona versus Sven versus Karria's Alistar? Just think about that in isolation. Like, how many times are you actually going to win a game when you have Sven on Leona versus Karria Alistar? Like, it's just not happening. Why would you ever opt into that matchup? They're just playing things that they weren't even good at domestically. So how, if you weren't good at them domestically, how are you now going to go against some of the best bot lanes in the world, some of the best AD carries in the world champs in your group, and actually outplay them?
It's such a rough stick to pull as well. I'm going to move forward to Group B, though, because Group B looks a little bit more cut and dry. Nelson, I mean, for someone who's been so close to my heart before, you know, you and I have worked together on stage before, and we've also seen JDG before in the spotlight. Man, they are kicking ass in this Group B.
I think I think they have been playing extremely well, especially Yagal. I think this has been like the best I've ever seen him play
Agreed.
for like 4 or 5 years. Because I didn't expect them to, like, firstly I didn't expect them to win LPL, but being 3-0 right now in this group, especially winning against Damwon, I think it's quite impressive.
Agreed. Tom, thoughts on this group as well?
I will say the best game of Worlds is probably that JDG Damwon game. That felt really back and forth. The games are not like super clean, but I feel like JDG's games are never clean. Like LPL, like they played 10 messy games versus TES. But the thing about JDG is whenever you're watching them, you just feel like they're going to find a way to come back in. It's literally the opposite of what you feel when you watch Cloud9 play, where you're like, nope, they're going to, no matter what, they're going to end up losing. You feel like JDG, unless the game is like really doomed, like 15k gold advantage or something absolutely crazy, you just feel like this team just believes they can win. And I think that's a really powerful thing because a lot of teams in just Worlds in general, they play fine when they're ahead, and as soon as one thing goes wrong, it crumbles so fast. But with JDG, they like keep on fighting. Like you have to not just beat them in one situation, you have to beat them repeatedly throughout a game to actually get a win.
And it's so crazy for me watching this team on other sides of the map. Nelson, take it away.
Yeah, I also want to add, I think like so far, I think they have the best drafts in the entirety of Worlds together with Rogue. They have both of those two teams, they just have the best drafts, and I think it showed. Because even in like close games against G2 and Damwon, they still managed to pull out the win because they just have better scaling.
So what about it, like specifically? Run me through the whole of JDG drafts in 3 games. I'm not going to ask you to draw me a diagram, Nelson, but like, give me a little bit of a touch of what makes it so appealing to you.
I mean, I think mainly like the game against Damwon and G2 because those are like the games which you expect to be competitive in your group, like having the Talia against the Graves, Silas, and Darius. I think it's extremely good. And Seraphine, even though it's everyone knows it's the CEO of NA playoffs, but it's not that good if you're pairing it with like a dive comp, because usually the Seraphine is not fast enough to like join the dive or be with the Silas during the dive. So I think they just had the better comp, taking the Yuumi and trading it for the Seraphine, and then against Genji, I think it was just a Azir gap. I think Azir is a bit too strong right now. True. Because most champions are like balanced around 4 abilities, but Azir, once he has 2 items, it doesn't matter whether he has R or not. He's still like, he's just a monster mid lane. Yeah,
feels like Yagao as well. I mean, just it lines up with his personality. I'm going to move to Group C because Group C, again, you were just mentioning Rogue, but Dom, I'll start with you because this has been, I think, the strongest I've seen EU in groups in a while, if I'm not misquoting.
Yeah, I think Rogue has been playing really well. I want to see how they fare in the second round robin when things get banned. I think there's a similar trend with Fnatic as well, where like the Maokai, I mean, for Rogue was just, I mean, it's a really good pick for IWDominate. It completely changes the way that you can play against them, and especially the fact that it can just stonewall top lane. Like you can't get advantage in that lane anymore. And the champion just scales so well. And even if you do somehow come up with a counter pick, it's also a flex. Champion is just ridiculous. And then like, I mean, to kind of jump back to Group A, like Fnatic had a similar thing with the Azir. So I feel like EU, like they're in really good positions to get out of groups, but I think that their second week is going to get a lot harder because there's going to be time to prep for these drafts. And I don't think that Humanoid's getting Azir, right? I don't think Humanoid's getting Azir anymore. And I don't think IWDominate is going to get Maokai. So I want to see how Rogue looks when they don't have the Maokai into top esports and DRX.
Yes, I mean, I think the drafts for most teams should be pretty fixed. I think almost every game, Maokai, Caitlyn, and Yuumi should be banned. And I'm not sure if you can open any of these 3 unless you're against like, NA or a wildcard team. I think those are the only teams where you can open these champions up.
True. Feels like really strong. I like that you pulled out. I like that you both have pulled out the Maokai now as well, especially when we're in Rogue's group too. I want to quickly touch on top esports because this has just been kind of like the hilarity of top esports to what we know, their ups and downs. Their opening game, I think it was against Gigabyte Marines, where it was a clap. It was beautiful stuff, like Jacula popping off, Knight as well having pretty clinical play. And then what we've seen as a result against DRX.
Yeah, they dropped the ball. I mean, they look different than they did domestically. I tweeted out after one of the games where, or after this most recent Rogue game, that it just doesn't feel like they have a good read on the meta at all. Tien is playing like Vi. I think Vi has looked terrible at this tournament. Pretty much every time that you see Vi selected, it feels like it's losing. And then like Vi, if Tien's on Vi, he's not going to be getting early advantages. And it feels like in LPL, he was consistently the jungler that was able to like, get advantages in the early game. He knew what he was doing early on in matches, and he knew what he needed to do to get the team in a winning position. And now he's never ahead. And he hasn't made like really any proactive plays in the 2 hard games versus Rogue and DRX. And on top of that, I think one of the issues is that Knight is just playing Azir in these games, and Azir is really strong, but it's not something that can make plays. So I feel like if Tien's not having a good game and he's not making plays, and then Knight is just stuck there farming on Azir, you're just not going to win unless like other people step up. And Jackie Love has been running it down in a couple of the games. Same with Wayward. I think that just makes it really, really difficult to win the game. I think the only way that Top makes it out is if they like hard just band-aid their drafts. No more Knight Azir, no matter what. Just put him on a playmaker so he has some agency to carry the game, and just let Tien follow Knight around and have playmaking potential in that lane so they can group up together and control the state of the game.
Yeah, I think top esports has like extremely weird drafts, but also they have the most, I would say, most limited top laner.
Yeah.
Amongst like the Asian top laners, in a way that he doesn't play Ornn, and he does play Sejuani, but Sejuani is not as strong anymore. But I think let's say like the game against Rogue, I think Ornn was perfect game for Ornn, perfect game for Sejuani. He didn't actually have to pick Gnar, which is like a free kill for Maokai and Lee Sin,
Yeah.
And then like games against like DRX where they played Azir again, which I think is an extremely strong pick, but there's no way you should go like Jax and a Draven lane. So then which lane do you help?
Dude,
but of course that's like they lost because they dived too much, but still I don't like their drafts.
Dude, at least they're on brand in some sense. It's like top esports could also be quite volatile, right? As my dog has just scared the crap out of me. We're getting to the point of Group D, and I've completely lost myself, but I will bring it back. I'm wearing the right shirt for this one, because going from planes to groups now, I mean, RNG have just evolved. Like, Dom, this team makes me so happy, because I think I know the capacity of RNG and what we saw in, like, playoffs into then regionals into RNG being reverse swept by EDG, and it's like, oh man, how well is this team going to do at Worlds? There's just like a weird flip coming into groups.
Yeah, I think it's a really good meta shift for them. I never thought RNG was really good at the Enchanter meta. Even though like Ming can play the Enchanters fine, it just feels like they're a completely different team when Ming's on engage supports. And now he's able to play Set. He's playing Amumu, and just when Ming is engaging, he just is completely setting up the team for just amazing team fights. So I think that they're benefiting from the meta change. Also, for AD carries, now you're having Aphelios and Kai'Sa, 2 of Gala's champions. He was never the best at like the Zeri Sivir meta, which is what was going on before. So I think the meta changes have been good for them, but then also they've just been they've been the most like poised team when it comes to like having strategies for games. Like their game against Gen.G, you could tell that they had a very like distinct way that they wanted to play the game, and Gen.G just wasn't ready for it. And I think it was really smart considering Gen.G's weaknesses. Gen.G is normally a slower team. They don't like to contest things early game. They don't want a game with a lot of volatility. They want to just sit there and like scale with Chovy, scale with Ruler, like put Peanut on some type of like ganking tank jungler, and then just make 100% plays and then eventually just win because your carries are better. And RNG didn't really let them do that. So I think RNG is looking really good. I think they're looking like a top 3 team in the tournament right now.
Ooh. Nelson?
I mean, this group, it just makes me want to see like what would happen if Gen.G play against DFM,
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I think RNG has been extremely impressive, and like I think their weaknesses are also like the mana bans right now, which is Caitlyn, Yuumi.
Yeah.
Red side has to ban it, and those are RNG's weaknesses as well. So I don't think they actually lose out on too much. They can still fall back on the Lucian army if it's needed. We've seen that in the play-ins, and I think it's still a very strong combo. And I think it was the way they played against Gen.G was extremely impressive, because I don't know any mid laner in the world who would pick Lissandra against Azir.
True, but dude, Xiao,
especially to Chovy.
No, especially against like a team which is like same or considered better than you.
It's impressive, right? I feel like Xiaohu is still that playmaking tool. Dom brought up the engage supports. 100% on that. His best days are the Nautilus, the Leona games that, that help win them MSI as well. Those are our 4 groups, of course. Round robin first. No, first one is down and dusted. I was going to ask you guys a quick question before we move on. Starting with you, Nelson, I wanted to ask you what you thought so far at Worlds the best region overall has been. Obviously, I think NA's probably not in this conversation with the way the first round robin's gone, but you're too
They're the most entertaining.
Hey, that's also true.
Yeah, they're the most entertaining. When I watch it with Dom, it's very entertaining for me. Maybe not for Dom.
It's pretty depressing, but that's a form of entertainment.
I think even from the stats itself, it just says I think LPL is the strongest, even though like TES is kind of like struggling to find the best drafts for themselves right now. Like the other 3 teams are either first or tied for first. So I think LPL is like clearly the best, and LCK is second, which when they have Genji, and I'm not sure about the other 3 teams actually. Maybe Damwon is second, but I don't have my hopes up.
Well, hang on. If you're not sure about the other 3 teams, I mean, I feel like Damwon's a solid answer, but Nelson, you got to be sure about the teams. Otherwise, how can LCK be second with like EU doing a little bit better,
No, it's just like Western teams are just more experienced in best of ones.
Oh, true. Okay.
But I mean, there's like the leeway I'll give to like the Korean teams, but I don't think T1 can win. I think it will probably be one of the LPL teams or Genji, and like maybe Damwon.
Dude, that's our content later. Nelson, hold that in, man. Hold that in. We're gonna go to Dom next. Dom, best region at the moment for you.
It's really hard to say. I mean, if you were going to go... So I think that maybe every LCK team might get out, but I think that like the peaks of JDG and RNG have just looked better. I mean, they're the only teams with Rogue that are undefeated. There's no LCK team that's undefeated. And I'm actually really surprised by how well LPL has been doing in the best of ones, because normally that's the kryptonite of LPL. I mean, with the way that LPL likes to play the game, it's normally, more suited for multiple game series where you can really get a read on the opponent and, just tailor the future games in the series to your own team's strengths. So I've been pretty impressed with LPL, specifically JDG and RNG. I just feel like they have had that like clutch factor. They just have that poise. And the team that I was looking forward to seeing from LCK, I mean, I think most people had Genji as like the best team. I think, we're probably in the minority, having JDG up there. But it's very interesting that Genji has been looking so bad. I mean, compared to like what you'd expect out of them, they just don't look like the same team. Considering they're playing the same picks, or like picks that make sense for them, like I don't understand why they're not doing as well when they're playing against weaker teams. Like for example, when they're playing against Flying Oyster and 100 Thieves, I feel like Chovy Azir or Chovy R, like that should just be auto win. And like if Chovy's playing well, then it feels like Ruler's playing poorly. Or if like Ruler and Chovy are playing well, then Peanut's playing poorly. It's just very weird dynamic amongst the teams. So I'm actually really surprised by how Genji's performed.
Yeah, I feel like, again, my expectations were that, RNG would be pretty scarce in this group because of Genji's strength, and I rated PCS maybe a little bit too highly, but that's my problem anyway. Let's move on quickly. We've got surprising champions up next. Now, this is something I threw in because I feel like there has been, well, we know it's a fact, there's been one of the most diverse metas out of any world so far, at least close to. Nuguri locked in Jace today. That was number 100 on the champion list as well. Any surprising champions for you guys, like that you didn't expect coming out? Nelson, if you want to kick this off.
I wouldn't say like surprising in a good way.
Okay, bad way's fine too, man. If you want to talk shit on it, go for it.
I'll say more like like picking Akali. I think there are many, like there are a couple of Akali games which I've seen this world which are picked at bad spots, especially against Azir and Maokai. I think those are not spots where we pick Akali, but I'm not sure why like the LCK or some of the LPL teams have this like obsession over this champion right now, especially into Azir.
Fair. Dumb.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the Graves picks and the Viego picks, mainly those two champions, because I mean they were like not played essentially at all anywhere. Like maybe you'd get the odd game, but they weren't considered like core meta champions in like any of the major regions. And like Viego didn't get any like real changes, so I don't know why that champion is just coming back out of nowhere. And then also like the Graves pick, I mean, people didn't want to play around their junglers. And I mean, Graves got buffed, but it would seem like if you think that like junglers are, you know, just dogs to the laners and that's the best way to play the game, then you would just be opting into more of just like the tank junglers still, or you would go for things like Hecarim, which I think is absurdly strong right now. Yeah. So I think the Graves and the Viego prio are like really high to me. And I think that's definitely something I didn't expect.
Yeah, I feel like Viego, especially for me, was just something I was like, hang on a minute. It feels like a flashback for a lot of LPL teams, especially. I was looking at things like, Aphelios, even though that's basic and that's still in a good spot. You know, I expected like Kai'Sa, Varus, Kalista, even the Caitlyn's to be letting through more instead of seeing things like the Aphelios, but they kind of hit me for a left turn anyway. Gents, I want to move forward into what you've enjoyed so far, because Worlds has been, I don't know, it's been a little bit more explosive than I thought originally as well. And Dom, back to you. Have you got a favorite game? You're saying before you enjoyed JDG Damwon, but was that your favorite game of Worlds so far?
Yeah, I mean that was probably my favorite game. Another game that really stood out to me that was one of my favorites was C9 versus T1. Just watching them like literally do nothing proactive for like that amount of time. Like I didn't even know you could play the game like that. So to me that was one of like the best games that I've seen, because I mean it was just it's actually harder to do that than play well, I think. Like imagine trying to make every wrong decision possible for like 25 minutes straight. I think that is literally harder, Like, I mean, at some point, you might just luck into a right. It just shows that they actually have really good game knowledge, because if they were just like flipping it, they would have just, just had something good happen at some point in that game. So that was really impressive to me.
I mean, I think I have like similar taste to Dom, but I think my favorite game was C9 against EDG. I mean, I'm not sure if Flounder was playing TF or was it Aatrox in the top lane, because he was just ganking everyone. He was winning lane, ganking everyone, taking over the map, and I think that's the end of Fiora for North American top laners.
Nah, he's gonna bring it out again. All right, so he's done Fiora and Jax. Next is gonna be Camille, and he's just gonna out carry these Asian tops. They don't know what they're messing with, the fudge factor.
Oh my god. Well, thanks for that. I'm so glad I asked. Screw JDG Damwon. In comparison, that game's trash. MVP, gents, where do you start on this one though? Because MVP for me, I just have to say, we've already said it. Of course, the esports manager. If anyone doesn't know, they set us out some cards. I think Dom, you got a big pack. Where is it?
I've got one downstairs. Yep.
Hell yeah.
I've got my signed TN card, which I was hoping that Worlds would go a little bit different, but I think that one might be depreciating in value. Well, based off what's happening.
If he's on Poppy again, I don't know. It's still better. I got Teachama. It's pretty hard to see, but that's kind of like rare in the sense that I don't even know if we're going to see that guy in the LPL again. But at the very least, the point to this madness is that esports manager as well has rated my man Yagao pretty high, 92 actually out of 100, which is pretty big. I don't know if you guys got for your MVP. I think Yagao definitely deserves it right now for the performance he's played. I mean, even hell, over this year, over the last split, particularly in the LPL, like, he just came out of nowhere. Nelson, do you have a favorite so far, or at least someone who you're striking for MVP?
I think it's you either have to pick Yagao or I think it's Wei, because I think there are some games, especially early on during play-ins, Wei was just carrying RNG throughout the games where they looked lifeless against DFM. So I think it's either one of those two, and if you are a fan of Xiaohu, maybe you would pick Xiaohu as well. But I think it's either a player from JDG or RNG. Okay. But for me, my pick is Wei, yeah.
I've got Humanoid. I think Humanoid is just like, I mean, maybe he's getting a 0 every game, but I mean, I just wasn't expecting him to like shit on Asian mids, like I just thought that, based off how he was doing domestically, all the random deaths that he died all the time to everything domestically. And somehow, like, he just completely stopped doing that, and now he's like back to old Humanoid, where he's just always such a force in the games. I think he's been doing really, really well for that team. I mean, he's been just super consistent.
Sure.
I mean, there's like an inside joke especially in LEC, like Humanoid is the 7th camp for the jungler, but I'm pretty sure all the Asian teams don't know it, so maybe that's why.
Or maybe he's just playing Azir and that champion is just ungankable, so you can't do anything to it.
Oh god, that's rough. So I've also just been told I'm looking at most frustrating player as well. We've already looked at MVP, but on the other side, someone that's really annoyed us. And look, I had to kick it off because I have to take this before any of you guys take it, because this is like the easiest one, and you guys got big brains, so you can find someone else. Dude, mine's Jackie Love. How could it not be Jackie Love? Every single time I've seen him, either in an international event or domestically in the LPL, like, he is the most frustrating player because of how good he can be, because of how, like, talented Jackie Love is. And then you see some players where you're like, man, okay, Jackie Love was obviously not thinking, or just wanted to flash forward for a hot day's night or something. So I don't know. It's frustrating is a good word for it. Dom, easy one.
I've got Fudge. I think Fudge is really frustrating. If not just for, like, I mean, the gameplay is just the picks that he's going for versus these top laners. I mean, he's just going for carry pick after carry pick after carry pick, with like Fiora and Jax, and these are champions that you have to be extremely good at them to actually make them work in team fights. And he's getting counter picks for lanes, or he's like blinding them and he's getting good lanes, and he just never seems to like get an advantage. He's like even into Ornn. Somehow he's laning into Flandre with Fiora, and Flandre's able to roam all over the map, but then also maintain like even CS, which makes no sense to me. Yeah. I think Fudge has been super frustrating to watch. I mean, especially because like these types of picks, I think, hurt the team if you're not able to perform. So yeah, I think it's been really a tough tournament for him.
Nelson.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think the most disappointing is Wayward, because I always rated him as like, you know, one of the best top laners. But you know, the meta changed, but I expected him, you know, like after you lost finals, you would have, you know, learned to play like Ornn, Maokai, but that didn't seem to be the case. And it seems like he's trying to do too much in games, which, you know, resulted into dying like a million times.
Yeah, it's a shame because, like, even though during regular season and maybe a bit of playoffs, like, Wayward was very quiet. It's, again, like what we saw in spring. It's also the fact that, like, Wayward still has this really high caliber. I couldn't agree more. You know, Wayward definitely. Also, from the same cloth, like, top esports, at least three players will be annoying at any given time. So I dig that. But moving on. As we move on, fan comments time, because I've been told that we're going to throw in some fan comments, and, you know, as we go through, before we start rounding things up and looking at what's going to happen over the next round robin, I've been given 5 different comments. Now, I've picked these out, and after we've talked about, you know, our MVPs, maybe now our chat becomes MVP. So as I read these out, I'll have a couple of questions for you guys as well. Did you know, Dom, that getting third seed in groups will help you avoid meeting any strong teams in the quarterfinals? That's smart.
I mean, that's the NA way. Well, I mean, they don't, like, why even risk it and get third? Like, why not just get dead last? Make sure you don't win one game so you can absolutely avoid all the strong teams.
True. It's a cheaper flight as well. I mean, at least you know you'll be able to book it in sooner rather than later. 2 things that teams finally have to learn is that they have to ban Yuumi, and they don't want to give Odo Maokai. I think it's pretty real, Nelson. Dude, both these champions right now, maybe more so Yuumi, because watching Yuumi is kind of death. Like, I'm glad they're banning it.
I think you just ban Yuumi. There's probably no answers, or you don't want to try and play the answers to it. I don't want to see, you know, I don't want to see Viper on Seraphine. You just don't give an Asian AD carry Seraphine.
Yep.
and don't give Odo Maokai. I think just don't give anyone Maokai. Oh, unless it's an NA team, of course.
Has it been played? It's been played in 3 different positions, isn't it? As a tangent.
Yep.
It's been at least 3. Yeah. Okay. Good. Because that's what I put in for my flex pick. You know, for Worlds. What did you guys end up doing, by the way?
I did Maokai as well. Jungle, top, support. I mean, those are 3 guaranteed, and I don't think there's anything else that's going to be played in 3 roles.
I almost did set, but I mean, again, I'm glad I didn't. Took a step back and like, maybe he's not that strong. Nelson, did you do your pick'ems?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, all right. Well, next question. All right.
I'm not so casual to do the pick'ems.
You filthy cat. Hey, don't worry, man. I was on holiday and mine flipped a coin. I think EG were first in group for my pick'ems.
I only do pick'ems after I see the draft.
Sorry, righty, right. Do not agree with you. Anyway, number 3. Apparently, the EU playbook for Worlds is give LPL bottom lane Sivir Yuumi and then proceed to feed it. Well, that is true. That's not going to be happening again, especially for people like Mark and Jackie Love. Now, Dom, this is actually a tweet apparently, but also more of a question. who is the last hope for NA? That's a great question.
I'm the last hope for NA. I'm the one that's going the farthest in this tournament. That's all I'm saying. Like, at least we're gonna be closing it out. So if you're an NA hopeful, I mean, I think that it's the only thing you can root for at this point.
At least you're consistent.
Do you know who's the biggest winner? I think biggest winner is like CLG. They have 4 American players, and I don't think they would do any worse if they were at worst.
True.
God, glad we got Nelson on the show. And finally, number 5, will NA make the miracle near airport run? They are close to home. Even they can minimize the flight distance. It's just incredible. Okay, great way to finish that one. This is so much shade for North America.
I mean, I would have to ask Dom, like, do they have to go to the airport, or is like Uber enough?
I mean, I would say at this point, like, it's either swimming or walking. I think that they've lost the. I mean, like, come on, like, are we really like? Imagine if you saw them going on the same flight as you. Like, I think that would just be a shame for our region. So I think they gotta walk back at least, and during that walk they can really think about what went wrong at this Worlds and improve for next year.
Especially if they're going from like east to west coast or something like that, man, that'd be a good time to think. Especially if they need it. 0-9, not the greatest start, but. Hey, look, second half of the group stage is coming up, and at the very least, we now have a good read on to who's looking likely to make it out. I don't know how I could spin that positively. Dom, do you want to kick us off and tell us maybe who your 2 teams are in each and every group that should be making it out for you?
So I think in Group A, I actually think T1 and EDG are going to make it out. I think that Fnatic's going to draw like a bunch of Azir bans. I think that's going to hurt them a lot. Group B, JDG, Dom1, don't see any real way that doesn't happen.
True.
Group C, I think Rogue and DRX. Top just look like their read on the meta is just so terrible, and they're just not playing well enough to get out. And then Group D, just the standard RNG Genji.
One European team. Nelson.
I think I'll take EDG first place and Fnatic second. I just think
put Fnatic over T1.
Yep, because I just think like the meta, or at least how the meta looks like right now in their group, is very bot centric, and they have the third weakest bot lane. Next one would be, I would say, JDG and Dalmon. I think it's also the same thing, but like the side lanes for both Asian teams are it's just better. They are just better, regardless of what Caps and Yankees can do.
True.
And then Group C. I think Rogue is like they are already through. They just need 1 win against Gigabyte Marines, and I believe they can take it. And I think, unfortunately, it's DRX, because I don't see top esports do like 3 good drafts in a row. It's not possible.
Okay.
and then RNG and Genji, I think they're locked for Group D.
Yeah, that feels right. I mean, at least Top Esports would make a nice little miracle run if they could do it, because you both said DRX. I put Top Esports to win all of Worlds, so right now I'm feeling pretty hot and heavy. Yeah, yes. Orcs got me into the feeling, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, man. Okay, I love Wayward too. Let's just do it.
You can't trust Worlds TN. TN's good, but Worlds TN is different.
Yeah, I'll just DM their coach. Just don't draft Zoe, Ziggs, Leona on the same team. There's a chance.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Nelson. Hey, who's your out of any of those runners you put in? You've already told me your top 8. Is there anyone in there you see as like, I guess like a little bit of a dark horse to take over? Take Top Esports out of the equation, because they're ones who could maybe, if drafting went well, knock DRX out or push themselves up to a top 2 position. Is there anyone in there who you're like, oh, I could see a world where they make it out of groups, like somewhat competitively? Dom, if you want to kick it off. Talking like the G2s, right, or the Oysters, or someone who you'd probably give the highest chance to of making an upset.
I mean, I think it's definitely G2. I mean, G2, they had a game versus Dom1 where they just like threw the whole game at Herald. They also had a pretty competitive game versus JDG. I mean, at least they have like the skill level where if they play a good game, they could win. And if that happens versus Dom1, they are most likely forcing tie breaks. So I think that they probably are the highest chance to potentially upset.
Nelson.
I think for me, like, the only change, if I would make a change in my prediction, would be like between Fnatic and T1. Those are the only ones which I'm not 100% sure. I think the rest of my other 7 teams, I'm pretty sure they will make it through.
Either way, it looks like 1 or 2 European teams, 0 NA teams, LCK, LPL. Could be an interesting quarterfinals or at least a top 8. And then finally, because we're, I like forward predictions. It might seem a little bit silly in hindsight, but World Championship, has anything changed from the Gen G, Top Esports, JDG column dom where you were sitting before? I think you were sitting pretty high on JDG winning Worlds, right? Was that your number one?
JDG was my number one to win Worlds. I mean, the quality that I like about JDG is what you're seeing in a lot of these matches. I think that because of the fact that it's like single elimination, you don't really have the ability to like have a bad series, and JDG just always fights, and I think that's really, really important to winning Worlds. Normally, like, you have to be like just willing to, get into the dirt. And when you think about last year's champion EDG, I mean, you're having to go to game 5 of the finals versus Dom1 in order to win. So if you don't have that grit, I don't really believe in the team. So JDG was my number one. I would stay with that. I mean, they won 3-0. I mean, I don't know what else I could expect from them. Their games aren't clean, but their games are never clean. And that's almost like what I like about them. The team that I would say has like changed my perception is RNG with their play. I think RNG is the team where I'm like, they could potentially win Worlds. They're kind of like a dark horse for me to win Worlds, where I think a lot of people, originally on me because I had them like 5th or something. So I had them above T1, and I think that was really controversial. But the more I see them play, I feel like this is actually a good time for RNG. They're able to play everything that they want to play.
Might not even be a dark horse at this rate. Like, I agree. Like, RNG have just come out of the woodwork surprise, and I feel pretty confident too. Nelson, what do you want to do? I never got to see your power rankings. I don't know if you released that. I don't know if it's like your pick'ems. You just didn't release that into the world. What do you have as you finish?
I think right now, after the 3 games, I think you can separate them in like different tiers. I think JDG, RNG are on a tier on their own, and then Gen G is on, or they should be, just because they are champions of LCK, or another like tier 2. Mm-hmm. And then it's like T1, Fnatic, EDG, Dom1, Rogue, DRX are like the 3rd tier, and everyone else I think they can't win Worlds. So I'll just put it in the last tier.
Okay. Would you give me a stronger answer? I know it's early. I know we're still in best of ones. It doesn't really matter, but you can tell me anyway.
I would want RNG to win. I would want RNG to win because I have the most like friends there, so I prefer them to win.
Yeah, but I want Top Esports to win. That's from the heart. Who do you think? Like, when you go to the brain, what does it tell you is winning Worlds?
I think RNG would win because they are the most experienced, and I am not sure if I can trust JDG in the finals if they are against the Korean team.
True. Okay. Well, look, hey, the fact that they're in the best of ones, they've done that much better is already a good sign. But I agree. Look, I feel like RNG have surprised a lot of people, and I like the answers here, especially since I'm wearing this jersey. Dom, a big thank you to you for hosting this on your channel, letting me talk and take your job, which apparently means no sleep. And
no sleep. But I mean, we got to ask one more question before we get out of here. This will be the final one, and I think that this is the toughest one of all, and this is going to be super controversial. Does NA go 0-18? That's the question. Like, I need to come to you, Hysterics. Like, what do you think?
Dude, it's going to be one win, right? Only one. And it's going to be Cloud9. And it's going to be over Fnatic.
Holy.
It's just going to be one.
Nelson?
I mean, I think they'll go 0-18, but I mean, at least for me, the question is, will any win any games, which actually matters, not when they're already knocked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think answer is 0. I don't think they will win a game. Although I could see 100 Thieves winning the Flying Oyster, though.
Yeah, or like Gen G, or like, one of those teams that sucks.
That's a better answer. Gen G.
I mean, I just need anything to show like some life, I mean, EG is fine, but they are the 3rd seed, so I have the lowest expectations. But the other 2 teams were very disappointing.
Yep. I've got 3 NA wins. They're gonna go 3-6, and none of them will matter. Once the teams get eliminated, that's when NA normally puts together some wins. That's when like they get like the stress off them. They're like, okay, it's all over. Just do your best, and then they actually end up stealing some games. So I'm going 3-15 for NA.
Oh, hell yeah. That's a lot more faith than either of us have put in, I feel like.
Yep, it's more faith than I actually have too. I just need to throw something out there, some hopium for the audience.
It's kind of gets to a point where it's a bit sadistic, isn't it? You start like, the pain just starts coming outwards. Or masochist. Masochist.
Didn't you say you have to give like 10k subs?
If they go 0-18, so I said like after their first game or like their second game, maybe like first day, that if they go 0-18, I would gift $10,000 worth of subs. So can we get some wins? Like, come on, like this is up.
Oh my god, dude, that's one hell of a bet. Dom, thanks again. Nelson, thank you again. Gents, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully there's going to be more episodes of the World's Talk. We've come together last minute, but we had a ball. So it's bye for now, but not forever. Thank you again, gents, and get some sleep. You both deserve it. Holy moly. Good night.